After a year break, we're back in Sweet Home, Alabama. It's time once again for the Porsche Sprint Challenge GT3 Cup Series. I'm Joe Peak, and with me in the booth is former sports car racer Joey Atterbury. Joey, the funny thing is, even though we're in the deep south, this track often gets compared to British road courses.
It's kind of one of those medium speed tracks that drivers tend to love out here, and it's been a beautiful weekend at Barber Motorsports Park. We're going to take a look at the track map here in just a moment because this track is filled with elevation and challenges that the drivers are going to have to face for the next 35 minutes plus one lap out there. We are on our first pace lap. The lights are still on out there as we get ready to get going on the green flag here short enough.
Exactly. You can see here from our drone view for those watching online just how twisty this place is, but this high shot does not show how hilly this circuit is, as it has tons and tons of undulation. So let's take a little bit of a look at this track and see what's going on under the hood here at Barber Motorsports Park, Joey.
Yeah, we'll get this track map right up here, and we are down in Alabama for Barber Motorsports Park, an elevation-filled racetrack, 17 turns in total. And trust me, it kicks off immediately in turn number one. Steep downhill from entry through Apex all the way down to the exit into that Alabama roller coaster that is turn 2 and 3. Look towards Charlotte's Web. That's turn number 5. That's going to be our biggest and best passing zone on the racetrack. And then also turn number 8, if you're feeling feisty, you can make some moves going down into there. Of course, that rounds out through the museum corner, one of the most awesome places to watch this race and also see some vintage motorcycles out there. And then after that, turns 10, 11, an incredibly fast section leading into turns 12 and 13. Just after turn 13 is the tunnel turn with tons of elevation, and sector number 3 is incredibly technical. Turn number 17, the final corner to complete the lap here.
A lot of turns around here for sure. And we have a lot of cars as well with us now on our final pace lap. Let's go through our starting grid. Carl Stout's going to be on the pole with Blake McGovern starting next to him in second. Lockie Bloxham comes over from Australia, usually racing in the Australian Carrera Cup, to start from third today. Luke French will begin next to him in his first visit to this track. Evan Hinkle then will begin from P5 as Riley Giacomazzi will start in 6. Jens Hansen, he'll be P7 today, flanked by Matt Siegel to his outside. Then you've got row 5, and that will start with Chris Hutter in the number 281. To his outside, Joey, it's going to be Joel Johnson in the 227.
And then in 11th place is going to be Keith McGovern. Next to him in 12th is going to be Todd Treffert. Starting in 13th is going to be Brannon Hankins in the 295. And 14th is going to be Frank Vitiello in that bright red 248. Elaine Scalzo in the 222 rolls off in 15th with Bill Fennick next to him in 16th. Mark Bowden in 17th with Chiacchetti back here in 18th. Monty in 19th with Grady Willingham rounding out our top 20.
21st goes to Scott Neal. He's got Greg Shermer starting in at 22nd. Then it is Stephen Schmitz in at 23rd, followed by Francisco de Jesus, the last of our 24 cars here today. Watch out for Joel Johnson starting from 10th. He's your pole sitter for the Masters class here today. But Carl Stout up at the front has already taken a sweep of the first 2 rounds back in Florida. We've hopped up to Alabama. Can he do the same? It looks like he's going to be challenged by Blake, Lockie, and Luke, who are quick this weekend. But as they look towards the flag stand, we wait patiently to get the go as they line up in 2 beautiful columns here. Approaching it, it is now green, and we head down to turn 1, making sure that we get through that first corner nice and cleanly as the cars swing their way through. We've got a few that go a little bit off into the dirt, but for the most part, we are mean and green
down through the Alabama roller coaster of turns 2 and 3. The drivers are going to stand on the gas, and here comes the sprint down to turn number 5. The 233 is side by side with the 240. That's Bloxham and McGovern duking it out for what is second place overall. Still side by side as we exit turn 6.
Bloxham gets just a bit of a better run. He's got a nose ahead, but they're still just a little bit overlapped coming down into Museum Corner. The question is, who is going to be able to come out ahead between the pair of them? And it looks like McGovern somehow managed to sneak ahead.
What an incredible start and first half a lap for all of our Sprint Challenge North America GT3 Cup drivers out here, and we're rolling through turns 11 and 12, the high-speed S-section switchbacks on the backside of this racetrack before we dive into what is turns 12 and 13 up over the tunnel turn.
Tell you what, coming through that first chicane on the backside, McGovern looked like he got a little bit loose for a moment, but he holds on to it, although Stout has pulled away by nearly a second. Here on the first lap, we got a spinner. Cars taking to the outside of the circuit in the grass to avoid. And it looks like they have gone completely off the circuit as they cross the line. Brief yellow flag before we get going once again. Thankfully, no full course yellow.
That was great avoidance from all of those drivers. Looked like a car got a little bit loose down there at the far side of the racetrack in about turn 15, 16, and everybody took avoiding action off of the racetrack to avoid any sort of contact. But Carl Stout continues to grow that gap between first and second.
That was Chris Hutter who had that spin. Thankfully, everybody able to dodge and avoid as we come down into Charlotte's Web for the second time in anger. It is still Treffert leading up in the, Treffert has taken over the lead, rather, from Joel Johnson in that Masters category. I'm trying to see where Joel is. I think he's down in 8th currently from what our timing and scoring it says. Something has gone massively wrong on his opening lap.
Yeah, I'm spotting that too. The 227 has fallen way down that Masters class order, so he must have been involved in maybe the turn 1 issue or that late turn 15, 16 on the opening lap. I see Elaine Scalzo leading Brandon Hankins through that fast 11 and 12 section. As I tell you what, Blake McGovern trying to stick on the back of our overall leader, Carl Stout, 1.1 seconds.
All that time he lost racing side by side, I think, is what you can blame for most of the gap that we're seeing right now. Because, yeah, he didn't lose too much this time around. Let's see what the lap time looks like between them as they cross. And I am seeing, well, it doesn't look like that is right. That's the elapsed time. There we go. It is about 4/10 slower there for Blake McGovern. Carl Stout still leading the way and distancing himself slightly.
Oh, pretty big slide coming through turn number 3. I think that was Loxley Bloxham really hanging out the tail end of the car as we ride on board the 240 of Blake McGovern. This is our second place runner, and if we looked out the rear view mirror, he has got a mirror full of Bloxham, French, and Riley Giacomazzi closing it in as well.
He's sticking close with him as we come down into Museum Corner once again. Taking an aggressive run across the curbs. We have one car down in turn 1 getting back going. We'll try and make out who that is. Looks like Grady Willingham, I think, must have had an off.
Yeah, I see that on race control as well. That was the 210 car down at turn number 1, but didn't see any other cars involved with him. So he gets back on the racetrack and going. We resume the green flag.
So Carl Stout still leads, McGovern second, Bloxham third, Luke French holds on to fourth, Riley Giacomazzi, who came home in second at Sebring, is all the way down in 5th today, so not as good as he was doing in the first 2 rounds. He could still have time to try and jump up. This is a 35-minute plus 1 lap race for those that are new to Sprint Challenge, so we still got a ways to go, but it is not long.
Carl Stout puts down another fastest lap overall, a 125.2, extending the lead all the way up to 1.7 seconds. I feel like now, after we've completed 2 full laps under green flag conditions, the tires are warm, the engines are warm, the drivers are warm, and we have settled into the rhythm. We're going to see who's more aggressive trying to make those passes on the racetrack.
I tell you what, we saw Scalzo getting very close. Oh, in fact, I think he just went for the lead. He made a pass down into Charlotte's Web, and he is up to the top of the Masters.
That's exactly what he did. Outbraked his competitor, Treffert, down into turn number 5, slid it down to the inside, executed the pass for the Masters class lead, and now he's going to try to run away.
Boy, he's got a lot of cars in behind him and a real train here, so he'll have his work cut out for him if he doesn't have the speed to distance himself. But it does look like there's a bit of a gap, about 5 car lengths between himself and Treffert. That's Brandon Hankins. He's a Pro-Am driver, so he's not racing Treffert for points here, but no doubt he will want to get by so that he can catch up to the rest of his class.
I think this is a little bit more representative of Elaine Scalzo's pace. We were waiting for him to really throw down those laps in qualifying, and it just never really appeared on the racetrack. But now once we've taken the green flag in race number 1 here at Barber Motorsports Park, he is on the gas, and he has made it to the lead in that Masters class. 9th overall, the blue and orange car.
Yeah, Scalzo did come away with a 2nd place in the first race back in Florida, but second race did not go to plan for him. It's back to form once again. Carl Stout continuing to set fastest lap after fastest lap. He's doing what we're used to seeing out of him so far, and that is running away from everybody.
One battle that is developing on the racetrack is the battle for 2nd place overall. That is between Blake McGovern and Lockie Bloxham out there, the 240 and the 233, going through the museum corner right now. Blake McGovern did a terrific job on that opening green flag to steal away that 2nd place position, and now Bloxham's really trying to fight and closing it up right underneath the rear wing.
So I wonder if that opening lap incident down at the final few corners had more to it than we initially saw, because they have now given incident responsibility to the 227 for contact with the 210. It's a stop plus 30 seconds. That's going to be painful unless we get a safety car.
And Joe, that's Joel Johnson. He started on pole in the Masters class. He's been one of our fastest Masters class cars all weekend. We had made the comment that he got shuffled back a little bit, and now he's in a deeper hole.
It is all going sideways for him today as we continue to watch our top runner of Carl Stout, now at a gap of about 3 seconds over Blake McGovern. And behind them, you can still see some close fights. Wow, look at the gap as well there for that orange and blue car of Elaine Scalzo. He is now a full 1.6 seconds ahead of Todd Treffert. He made that pass only a lap ago.
He's doing an excellent job doing what he needs to do out on the racetrack, and that is execute clean, fast laps. As long as you hit your marks out there, you should be able to accelerate away from the cars in front of you. Still, that battle for 2nd place rages on as we get maybe a little bit of action down there further back in the pack in turn number 5 as well. But I think it really is between McGovern and Bloxham right now.
Certainly looks like it. Treffert still has Hankins all over the back of him. Look at this coming out of the opening chicane on the back straightaway. Getting awful close there between French and Bloxham.
Yeah, and I was just noticing that Luke French's last lap time about a half a second faster than the 2 cars that we've been talking about, McGovern, Bloxham. So what was a 2-car fight for 2nd place is about to be a 3-car battle.
They're coming back onto the main straight, and that orange, white, and green car, that is going to be Blake McGovern there being chased by Bloxham. That's for P2. They're down into turn 1. And yeah, there is not much between the pair of them at this early stage of the race. They're going to be coming around to that brake zone as we get a nice onboard from Luke French. He's got a front row seat to the battle. Will we see Bloxham go for the dive? He decides not to and will stay in line behind Blake McGovern. But the Australian has been putting immense pressure on.
And this is an interesting position for Bloxham to be in. Yes, McGovern did start in 2nd place, so he did out-qualify Bloxham, but it certainly seems like the raciness out of that 233 has come alive once we've hit this afternoon session over here. And now he's got to worry about a car behind him. So how aggressive does he get trying to make the pass on McGovern versus having to defend if Luke French gets too close?
Exactly. He's going to have eyes in front and eyes behind on this one, especially at a track where it is so tough to try and make those overtakes. When the opportunities come, you don't look a gift horse in the mouth. We saw him take a little bit of a look there into the 2nd chicane, up and over the tunnel turn. Didn't quite try and stick his nose in, but still, he is obviously trying to see if he could shake him as we now switch to an onboard coming down onto the main straight. There was another look coming into the final turn, and Bloxham is absolutely hassling him at every chance.
He might have gotten a little radio transmission that says, hey, you know what, you need to get this pass done because this car that we're riding on board with, the 275, is coming fast right now. Maybe a little bit of a loose wiggle out of that 240 going through the Alabama roller coaster as they're trying to put down all 515 plus horsepower to the ground.
Defense to the inside of turn 5 from McGovern. He is feeling that threat. He's trying to cover him off where he can. I don't think it was a good enough run from what we can see on French here, heading over towards Museum Corner, so we'll have to wait once again.
And usually through this Sector 2 and Sector 3 on the back side of Barber Motorsports Park, there's not a ton of heavy brake zones, so you really have to force a car into a mistake or be all the way up alongside if you are trying to make that pass. And you see him pretty much tucked up underneath the rear wing, but the problem here, this turn 12 brake zone, it's just not that large in order to make a lunge.
Keep our attention on that trio, but just behind, I did see that Hinkle and Siegel were getting a little close at times, so I'll keep half an eye over on that battle in case that starts to erupt as well. But the battle for P2 has heated up something fierce here today. Our leader's starting to catch the lap traffic of the penalized Joel Johnson in the meantime. We'll see if that alters any of his lap time at all.
And yeah, that's just such a shame for that 227 to see what happened so early on after having such a great weekend leading up into race number 1 here as we peel back to this 3-car battle. Now, Carl Stout has just extended the gap, and here comes Bloxham. He's taking a look. McGovern goes defensive right in the middle of the road. Bloxham looks to the outside. Can he try to put the power down with an over-under? He's got a run coming out of turn number 6.
He's going to get to his left side, and wow, he's got way more power. He's already a nose ahead, but he's not on the desirable side of the track when you're coming into this corner wheel to wheel. And as they head down the plunge, it is going to be McGovern who narrowly holds onto it, but it is by the skin of his teeth.
My goodness, this is a fantastic battle that we've got going on here, and things continue to heat up all over the racetrack. It's not just that 3-pack, but I look throughout the rest of the field, and we have some terrific battles going on.
Yeah, like I mentioned, Hinkle and Siegel split by only a quarter of a second. We can see that here on some of our shots in the background, so that remains a bit of a threat. I also see Keith McGovern and Mark Bowden as well fighting for third, last podium spot in the Masters class. Bowden, actually, I understand, is celebrating his birthday today, so that'd be great to share some champagne and some cake.
Well, let's see another lap completed here, and that 3-pack goes charging off into turn number 1. I was curious to see if Riley Jacques-Mazzi was going to start to close it in that little bit, and his last lap time was actually faster than those 3 cars in front of him. Not by a whole lot, but by about 0.2 of a second.
And Matt Siegel did get by Hinkle this time, but they've also been joined by Jens Hansen, so that battle for P6 is looking like that one is hot. Once again, a defensive move down into turn 5 by McGovern, doing everything he can as he has got himself his hands full this time down to the inside. This is what Loxham has been looking for, and that time it works. Down into Museum Corner, move Lockie into P2.
Been working on it for about 9 laps, and now we're going to see what Bloxham has with some clean air and a clean windshield in front of him, already pulling it out 2, maybe 3, even 4 car lengths by the time they hit the brake zone into turn number 12. I'm going to be curious now, how much pressure does Luke French start to apply?
Lap times for Stout was in the high 25s, so watch out for Bloxham now that he's freed up to see if he can match that and try to chase him down a little bit. But it looks like poor Blake McGovern is not out of the woods. Now he's got Luke French trying to take him off the podium steps.
And I think just kind of looking directly in front of this battle, we are approaching a lot of lap traffic out there. So what was a straightforward sprint race is definitely going to be something a little bit different looking here shortly.
I think there was an attempt down into turn 1, was trying to figure out who that was. It may have been Hankins and Bowden having their own little fight there for a brief moment. We picked them up on our screens now, coming down to turn 5 as they head towards the braking.
And Riley Giacomazzi is continuing to close it in. That last lap time, I'm talking about the green 296 out there, was 0.4 faster than Luke French, so still 2 seconds back, but he is doing everything possible to try to close in that gap. I also saw that the Hinkle, Hansen, Siegel battle still rages on.
So that was Hansen and Siegel that we saw, and the 277 still leading that group, but now Hansen is in the middle in the 225. Siegel losing places quickly here in the middle part of the race.
He had made those passes, and sometimes the racecraft definitely can come back with the over-unders and whatnot, but Jens Hansen is one of these drivers that's graduated out of those Cayman-classed cars and up to the GT3 Cup Series now here in Sprint Challenge. I have a feeling once Jens is very, very comfortable in that car, he's going to continue to get faster, so look for this racecraft to try to move him up a little bit.
He looked incredibly strong in the Caymans, just with an impressive championship run. And he's trying to translate that to some faster machinery. Next on his list going to be Hinkle in the 277. He's about 6/10 behind that car at this stage. We follow them through the Alabama roller coaster once again. 1, 2, 3, and 4 as they rise and fall with the elevation. Meanwhile, as we take a peek up at Bloxham, his last lap, a 25.6, but Carl Stout says not that simple, my friend. 25.1 for our race leader.
And not only that fastest lap of the race goes to Carl Stout, but he just set a purple sector 1. Purple sector 1 means overall fastest out of anybody, and we are on lap 11 right now.
So Carl Stout, despite now having someone who's a little bit quicker behind him in P2, is not allowing him to get any closer than he desires. It's still at about 8 seconds between he and Bloxham. But looking a little bit farther down the field, that fight for the podium between Bowden and McGovern seems to have separated. It looks like Keith fell off by about 2.5 seconds. So Mark Bowden now sitting much safer in that third spot for Masters.
I hear you, but when I look at that Masters class, just a couple more spots down, it is a raging battle for 5th place. Frank Vitiello narrowly hanging on over Fennick. And also I see Chris Hutter is also in that now. He's a Pro-Am class car, but trust me, they are going to be racing on the racetrack.
Without a doubt. Hutter obviously had his issues at the very start, and then Brandon Hankins was kind of sandwiched between a few due to qualifying. He's just trying to work his way back up to the other Pro-Ams. So yes, he doesn't really care so much about Trefford and Scalzo and what they mean towards his race, except for the fact that if he's being held up. We take a look at Charlotte's Web once more, just ahead of Scalzo, Hinkle, Hansen, Siegel have not changed position since we last looked. Eric Hinkle still in P6.
I was noticing something that is developing, though, is remember Elaine Scalzo made that move early on in the race to claim that Masters class lead in 9th place overall. Well, Todd Trefford has not given up. If anything, he's starting to take some notes and closing it back in as well.
Indeed, and it looked like initially he was much quicker because he had put himself well ahead of that group, but they've reeled him back in. We're taking a look once again at French, McGovern, and Bloxham, though. Those 2nd, 3rd, and 4th cars who have been so close together this entire race can't seem to get away from one another. Thought that Bloxham was also going to start to run away, but doesn't look like he's able to do so completely.
No, and really this battle right here between Hinkle, Hansen, and Siegel, I think is our closest on the racetrack right now. It is Jens Hansen in that dark black car with the green highlights giving chase to the white car with the light blue highlights. That's the 277 versus the 225.
Yeah, if this is your first time tuning in, we'll get to that point in a bit. We got a car spun. Francisco de Jesus down at Charlotte's Web. He's got the flashers on, but he is prone completely across the track right now. Now he gets a gap, and he's trying to get it going. You got to move now, bud. And he finally gets it to shudder its way forward out of harm's way.
That was very, very nervous moments, I think, for Elaine Scalzo approaching turn number 5 because he's got so much pressure directly behind, and now that the car is cleared from that little hazardous area, we resume the green flag down in that one corner.
What I was going to say is, for our new viewers, since Joey mentioned the green highlights, is that's how you tell those Pro-Am cars, is you look for the green end plates on the rear wings, and then if they're yellow, that is the Masters. Looks like Carl Stout still picking up pace late in this race. He just set a purple second sector, but the rest of the lap wasn't really all that special. Even still, he's been running now into the low 25s.
Well, you say that his fastest lap is a 24.9, and that last one was
True.
a 25.0. So maybe not have been personal best or overall fastest, but he continues to grow that gap. And I'm looking through my timing and scoring. There's not a single car that is faster than that 243.
They're going to have to regroup for tomorrow, that is for sure, unless there's a major mistake from Carl out there where we get a safety car. In fact, we do have a yellow flag somewhere that we're seeing. We'll try and dig that up to see what's causing that out on the track, but it seems like nobody is able to really run him down, and they've gone back to green in whatever sector that was in. So thankfully it was just a temporary intrusion. You talked about Scalzo. Todd Treffert got almost to the bumper down in turn 5 this last time. I almost wonder if we should turn our attention back to that once again. We could have a battle for the Masters lead.
And you see some of the headlights being flashed on the racetrack, letting everybody know. I believe that's Riley Giacomazzi coming up to one of the lapped cars here towards the front of the field. So he is trying to urgently let his competitor know, I'm trying to catch these cars that just went by you, so please don't hold me up.
Exactly. He's got a race to run here. Can't be sitting around for too long. Does look like Luke French is still keeping Blake McGovern in his sights. He's about 3/4 of a second behind him, so he's not within striking distance, but he is at least somewhat close. As we follow down into the first corner, for those three, we still see, like we're getting information, it was the 228 that caused that yellow flag. They had an off over on the far end of the course there at turn 15.
Yeah, and the 228, that's Monty there for Fall Line Motorsports, still showing in 8th place in class right now, so it must have been something that happened relatively quickly, got back going on the racetrack here. So I think between the battle for 3rd place and then also the battle that we are watching here on the screen is our closest racing that we've got. Elaine Scalzo still hanging on over Todd Treffert, but I really do think it's this Hinkle, Hansen, Siegel battle.
Yeah, which is going to be a little ways in front of Scalzo. So if they do start to fight, you can see how close they are on screen there. They have some room before they're caught up by our lead battle for the Masters. Ooh, this is looking a little bit nervy for Hansen, as on either side, Matt Siegel was kind of poking his nose. He kicks up some dirt over the tunnel turn. He's pushing at 10/10ths.
Got to be careful with some of these elevation changes that we've got here at Barber Motorsports Park. We've got the Alabama roller coaster. We've got the tunnel turn over there at turn number 13, 14 area. And there's lots of unweighted feelings inside the race car. So you just have to understand when you've got the grip on the big compressions and when the car is very light on its feet over at the crest.
Back down into turn 5 once again, where we see the 233 just barely ahead of this group. Bloxham has about 4 seconds over Blake McGovern now, so he has done a good job. My goodness, Jens Hansen nearly felt the car behind him pushing him through turn 5. Matt Siegel just trying to lay it on as best he can, but we haven't seen Hansen blink quite yet. He's handling this well.
And just kind of analyzing through turn number 5 there, it certainly seemed like Siegel was fast in, maybe a little bit slower out, while Jens Hansen slow in, and then once he stood on the gas, he put all of that horsepower down to the ground and was actually able to stiff arm his way away from Siegel. So 2 different methods on the driving right there.
Todd Treffert dropped a little bit. No, excuse me, I'm looking at Brandon Hankins. Brandon Hankins set his personal best lap last time by. He's still trying to catch up to Treffert and Scalzo and get up to Siegel. Now, as we mentioned, Scalzo has a decent gap up to Matt Siegel, so once Brandon even gets by, if he does, then he's got a lot of work to do and only 10 minutes to try and catch them down.
Watch our leaders go up through the first set of corners here and then follow along with Eric Hinkle leading this battle here. I got to say that Lockie Bloxham has done a terrific job to pull it away from Blake McGovern ever since making that pass. 5.5 seconds now between second and third, so it really is Blake McGovern still under pressure from Luke French. Luke is about, call it 3/4 of a second back, but any sort of mistake or moment on the racetrack out here, he is going to be eating up that position.
And he's going to be hungry for that podium. It's been a bit since he's been able to stand on that. And Luke told me before the race that he's aiming for a top 5 today. So even if he doesn't, I think this 4th place is well within the wheelhouse of what he wanted.
Well, things have settled in very, very nicely here on the racetrack. And I mean, what was a 35-minute race plus 1 lap is now already under 10 minutes remaining, just under 9.5 minutes remaining out here on the racetrack. 18 laps completed for our leader, Carl Stout.
I think there's some lap traffic just in front. That's the 223. So yeah, they're catching up to a car, this battle between Hinkle, Hansen, and Siegel. Kind of watch them as they go by us here in the booth, and that car is pulling off to the side. So thankfully, great job there by the 223. That's Schmitz to just stay out of the way of that fight.
And now we're looking at Elaine Scalzo versus Todd Treffert. Brandon Hankins is going to be that 3rd car in line with Mark Bowden giving chase here on the front straightaway. They're diving off here into turn number 1, and that is our Masters class lead. Yes, we do have the Pro-Ams and the Masters out here, and right now Elaine Scalzo in the 222, that blue and orange machine, leading our Masters class.
And, I mean, awesome job by Scalzo, because, you know, we saw the pace in practice too. We thought, yeah, he looks really fast, and then didn't seem to be able to back it up quite the same way in qualifying. But it's not the qualifying that gives the big points. It is the race itself, and this is where it counts for him.
And we know Elaine Scalzo and his personality. He is always going to be a fighter out there on the racetrack. We had mentioned Jens Hansen coming from the Caymans. Well, Scalzo is another one of those graduate drivers making his way up into GT3 Cup this year.
In fact, Scalzo and Hansen at times were fighting for the overall win in those Caymans, even though they were in different classes, and I can guarantee it meant something to both of them. Thankfully, they're a little bit farther apart now at this one. Although Hansen would probably like to be a few positions up.
And I'm just noticing the extreme consistency out of Carl Stout. Last lap time, 1:24.96. Fastest lap time of all is also a 1:24.92. So only 4/100ths of a second apart from his best lap and his last lap.
It's amazing stuff. He is a talent to watch out for. He's now up to about 13 seconds over Bloxham. This is looking a lot more like what we saw in Florida out of the Belgian. Everybody has been dropped like a bad habit. Meanwhile, down through Charlotte's Web once again, Hinkle maybe just a little bit off the apex as Jens Hansen starting to get close to him. He'd love to get that P6 back off of the 277.
I want to give credit to Eric Hinkle. It is not always easy to drive on the racetrack when it is just relentless pressure out here. And so Evan Hinkle is going to be doing just a terrific job to be maintaining that 6th place position and really just letting the car kind of run out in front of him while maintaining his own pace, kind of being that roadblock out there on the racetrack.
Yeah, Evan just has to focus on his own race for sure. This is one that is tough. If you just hit your marks, if you get the good exit off the corners, the drivers behind will have a hard time trying to make that overtake stick. 6th place, not going to be too shabby for Evan Hinkle. In the meantime, the race very much settling in, although it's going to be over before we know it. We're down to 6 minutes plus a lap to go. If you want to get something done, you're going to have to start working for it now.
Oh, well, Jens Hansen is certainly working for it. I was noticing timing and scoring 0.3 of a second difference between those cars. Now, maybe Jens is starting to apply a little bit more pressure. He may have gotten a little radio communication saying, hey, you've only got about 5, 6, 7 minutes left, so if you want that spot, you're going to have to get a little bit more aggressive. He went very wide into turn number 5, trying to put the power down and shorten up that exit.
This has got to be difficult for him because, yes, he wants to be aggressive on Hinkle, but Matt Siegel is still right there and just keeping him honest. There was another little look coming down into Museum Corner. Joey, how does he manage to be on both attack and defense?
It can be a very, very difficult challenge out there, but Jens Hansen, thankfully, is very comfortable inside any race car. You see the flash of the lights right there, letting his competitor know, I am trying to get a little bit of room, maybe at apex, and even going down here into that 12 complex, so close on the bumper.
Where does he find it? Can he get some sort of mistake out of Evan at the end of this race? Could he sneak it up the inside there, coming through the final couple corners? Not this time through. Looks to set himself up on the run out of the final turn and onto the main straight once again. Just a few laps left. He continues to flash the headlights at Evan Hinkle at just about every other 30 seconds.
And Evan is doing a terrific job just to maintain that pressure. It's just like somebody in bumper-to-bumper traffic that is right on the back end, and they're being really, really aggressive. That's what Jens Hansen is trying to kind of exert against his competitor, and actually Evan Hinkle goes defensive this time into turn number 5, right in the middle of the racetrack as we ride on board with Siegel, the third car in the line.
Yeah, as soon as we jumped onto this car coming through turn 3, he got a whole handful of oversteer. Thankfully, he was able to correct it, but I think it cost him a tenth or two up to that battle ahead. I'm sure he is watching with intent interest. If he continues to see aggression out of Jens, that could open that door he's looking for.
Something else I was just noticing is right in front is that Luke French still not letting go of Blake McGovern, only about 3/4 of a second separating that third and fourth place overall, and especially with the Pro-Am podium in contention there.
There is our leader, the 243, now up to 14 seconds ahead of anybody else in this field, continuing to deal with a little bit of lap traffic in front, but he's built himself such a gap. He can really take his time, but he's got to watch out for spinning cars like that coming out of turn 5. That may have been Chris Hutter.
And thankfully, like you said, stayed out of the way of the leader, and now they are rolling across the grass and should be able to get a gear and accelerate. But Joe, he's actually stopped on the right side of the racetrack here.
He's put it into neutral, it looks like. He's trying to get it back in gear. And something may have gone awry here. I hope this doesn't mean, yeah, we've got a yellow flag, but does this mean a full course caution?
No, we are just local yellow right now, at least in turn number 5. That car is pretty far off on driver's right. The only problem is that it potentially still is a zone that can kind of collect some more cars.
Yeah, some drivers have said that they can be very loose on the throttle, so you got to watch out for it.
Ladies and gentlemen, your attention please. 9-year-old Zaylen Reeser is waiting at tram stop number 2 for his parents to meet him. Can we please get parents over there? Again, 9-year-old Zaylen Reeser waiting at tram stop number 2 for his parents. Parents, please make your way over to your child.
Thank you for that there, Steve, as we're still waiting to find out what's going to happen overall. They're staying green except for locally now, and they're letting the drivers race as we get 2 minutes plus a lap to go. That's just going to be a couple laps around this circuit.
I really do enjoy trying to let this race play itself out with the time that we've got remaining. I do feel that it's in a slow enough area that as long as the drivers are aware the car is out there, they can make the necessary adjustments. So as long as the yellow flag continues to be out in turn number 5, make sure everybody knows there's a car way out there on the exit, and we should be all right.
Here's what puts the water on the fire, though. That's really the only good passing place a lot of the times down into Charlotte's Web. So that really takes away a lot of opportunities for drivers. And we're going to be getting a white flag soon-ish. Remember, we have to get to 0 on the clock before they throw that white flag. So this 1 minute left has to end.
And I do see the yellow being displayed at the flag station going into turn number 5, but lots of cars still racing it out there. So, like you said, about a minute remaining here before we get that +1 lap. And there goes by our leader right now from start-finish stand, so we should have 2 laps remaining.
Ooh, Scalzo's not out of the woods. And if we had a change for position behind him, Brandon Hankins managed to get by Todd Trefford, it looks like.
Certainly has. Yeah, Brandon Hankins up to 10th place overall, and I think Elaine Scalzo is loving that in the rearview mirror because Brandon Hankins is a Pro-Am car. Todd Treffert's that Masters class, so it gives him a one-car buffer.
A safety net for our Masters leader right at the very end. That's exactly what he has been hoping for. We tick down to 0 here in about 10 seconds, so Stout will be taking that white flag shortly.
I think he has still just completed sector number 1, so he is on the back side of the racetrack right now, probably going through Museum Corner, maybe even 10 and 11. I think I see him out my window on the far side of the racetrack going towards turn number 12, so he only has about a lap and a third remaining.
Well, we had some dramas for sure in this one, but it's looking like that track position is still king in this spot. We have a fight between Bowden and Treffert for second in the Masters category now that Treffert has been passed by Hankins.
That's exactly what I was noticing on the racetrack, is that because of that pass of Hankins, Treffert not only is not in contention of the win, but he's also in contention of losing that second place mark. Bowden.
White flag has been given to Carl Stout, 1 to go. He holds it about 14 seconds over Bloxham. He has not extended that gap, but it is holding station. And McGovern is, he's about 9 seconds off of Bloxham. So Lockie did indeed drive away from the rest of them at some point. Luke French is still challenging Blake for that last step on the podium.
Yeah, and I'm actually looking for him out the window here. I think Luke French is right on the back bumper, going into what was turn number 5 on the racetrack there. But once again, with that local yellow being displayed, it's going to be very, very difficult for him to get by. He's going to have to look towards the Museum Corner if he's going to try to make anything work.
It'll have to be aggressive if he wants to make an overtake, and I don't think he got the exit, so Museum Corner doesn't seem likely. Maybe a sneak attack into the final turn. We take a look at our leader because he just has a couple corners to go. And Carl Stout going to make it a hat trick for the first 3 races of the season. Again, just establishing himself as someone that you need to set your sights on if you want to take this championship, because already early in the season, it has been a perfect run for Carl Stout.
Amazing execution from that Kelly Moss Racing team, and now we wait patiently for Lockie Bloxham to come across the start-finish line. It's about 15 seconds back, but has done a terrific job, claims second place.
Beautiful run. McGovern has extended his gap over French, so he's in a much safer position. He crosses the line and gets a podium. Still a wonderful top 5 for Luke French and for Riley Giacomazzi, who follows across there in the Pro-Ams. We're still waiting on Scalzo, who should be approaching the line shortly here. He didn't start on pole, but he certainly is going to finish it in that P1 as he is the next up to cross the line as he exits out of the final turn. It was a bit close, but it wasn't with someone in his class as he takes 9th overall, but the win in Masters.
And I mean, look at how close that Masters class was inside the top 3, even including Brandon Hankins, who's in the Pro-Am class, only about maybe 1 car length separating each of those 4 cars.
With the last of them trickling across the line, your finishing results for today's race unofficially sees Carl Stout your winner, Lockie Bloxham in second, with Blake McGovern finishing third. It was Luke French P4, Riley Giacomazzi was fifth, and Evan Hinkle was P6. Matt Siegel, P7 today. Jens Hansen did get overtaken by Siegel before it was over. He was 8th. Your winner in the Masters was Scalzo. He was followed by Brandon Hankins, who was in Pro-Am. And then second in that Masters class went to Todd Treffert. Third went to Bowden. That was 12th overall for Mark. Overall positions from here on out, Keith McGovern was in 13th, Frank Vitiello 14th, Bill Finnick in P15, Alessandro Chiacchetti 16th, and Troy Monte in 17th. Then it's Greg Shermer, P18, Joel Johnson 19th, Neil was 20th, Steve Schmitz was 21st, Francisco de Jesus 22nd, Grady Willingham 23rd, and a DNF for Chris Hutter. We'll have your podium ceremonies here shortly, so stick around.
Coming up next on the track, about 4:15, we'll see the Ford Mustang Cup for their second race of their doubleheader weekend here at Barber Motorsports Park.
Got a gypsy soul, I'm a rebel and rogue, and I'm always on.
Welcome back. We're here with our winner in the Masters class for race 1, Elaine Scalzo. Elaine, you had to fight your way forward, made up for the qualifying. Did you impress yourself because you impressed us?
Yeah, I mean, I was so focused that I didn't have time to have emotions, you know. But yeah, after the checkered flag, I was very, very, very happy. A lot of emotions. Yeah, I didn't expect to win today, to be honest. I was aiming for a podium, maybe a third place, but I'm very, very happy. Very happy.
Do you feel like this affirmed your decision to jump from the Caymans up to the Cup cars?
Of course. I knew we would have been competitive, but honestly, to win a race at the third race, second event, that's yeah, we're very pleased with that.
I think you did well. Enjoy the champagne and congratulations.
Thank you very much.
And we've got Carl Stout, who won in the Pro-Ams. Carl.
That's Carl.
Oh. We've got Carl Stout, who won the Pro-Ams. Carl, you did an amazing job up there. You had a gap of about 14 seconds in the end. How did you manage to gap them so well?
I was honestly just waiting for Blake and Lucky to start fighting so that I could have a bit of a buffer, and then just managed to take care of my tires and kept a little bit in for the end to be able to push away. So yeah, it was pretty interesting race, I'd say.
So based on your dominance in this one, are you expecting to win the next one, or do you take nothing for granted here?
I'm taking nothing for granted. It's a high level of competition, so I'm going to have to fight for it every time. And yeah, just going to try and maximize everything I can in my control tomorrow to get another win.
Well, amazing job and excellent win today.
Thank you very much.
Carl Stout, now that we actually found the right one. But we'll have more racing coming up later with the Caymans. Tune in as we prepare for race 1 on them here at Barber.